Well, good Saturday morning to you all. I am headed out for a little breakfast commute. Ooh, looks like I need to replace my glove. Headed out for a little breakfast commute this morning. I returned back from my Arkansas trip. I took the PCXs for that. I was debating on taking the Cub, and in retrospect, I probably should have, because it would have done just fine with the speeds that we were running and the roads that we traveled. It would have been a real hoot, real twisty mountain roads. It's pretty neat. But yeah, the trip went well. There were no problems. We trying to think what the total mileage is. I think it was 1,580 miles round trip. So just a tick under 1,600 miles. It's kind of what I had anticipated. I didn't really know how much riding we were going to do each day while we were up there, but the rough estimates were between 1,500 and 1,800, and it was right there. So I did okay. We didn't have any problems or casualties of the bikes or people on the way on the trip, except for the very end of the trip. One of the participants had a CVT belt grenade on him, on his Zuma 125, and luckily he had a spare and all the tools that he needed to do a roadside repair for that. So he sent pretty cool pictures of it. I'll try to include those in the video. I haven't gotten to editing or posting any of that video yet. But yeah, he stopped on the side of the road and pulled the variator cover off, and it was just a crumpled mess of rubber in there. And he swapped it out and got back on the road. I think he said it only happened like 30 or 50 miles from home. It wasn't very far from home. So good for him. The two newbies that went along on the trip did exceptionally well with riding and camping. Neither one of them were moto veterans, and they were new at camping, and they did really well. They didn't have any problems at all. Our gear fared well. We didn't get wet. We didn't get any breakages or losses on the gear, which is a good thing. And we did have some pretty nasty storms. In fact, our first night of moto camping, which is the second night of the trip for us, we stealth camped illegally in a state park because it was closed, and we really didn't have a whole lot of choice, so we just did it. And there were a bunch of guys there doing the same thing. A bunch of guys on big BMW GSAs. There were 7 or 8 of them back there in the woods, and we came and crashed their party. And that night, right around 10 p.m., the weather changed and got real nasty. And by, I think it was 10:20 or 10:30, we had a tornado warning. First it was a watch, then it was a warning, like immediately after. Real bad winds, and we were just in the hook echo on the radar, just right on the edge of where this nasty storm was. So we got a lot of the wind, but luckily we only got, rain and no tornado, so that was good. You're out in the middle of the woods, and the warning says, take shelter now. Yeah, right. You know where to go, man. Once you're out there, you're out there. Good luck. So anyway, we did okay. And then the next few days, we just, traveled all around the Ozarks and took a bunch of twisty scenic roads, did a few loops on well-known motorcycle roads and rides up there. It was a hoot. We just putted along at somewhere between 50 and 60 miles an hour on those roads, and we did great. Now, going up some of the hills, the Zuma was definitely struggling, got down to 35 to 40 miles an hour, and even the PCXs were struggling a little bit, or at least the one that I was on. I was only able to maintain about 45 to 48 up some of those hills because they're steep. Yeah, at some point, if we find one of these turnoffs up here, we should probably stop and let the car go by. He's pushing it. But yeah, no problems. And we had very little traffic. It was fantastic. The whole trip, we had very few occasions of aggressive cagers tailgating us or getting right up on us. There was just not much traffic to speak of. One day, I think we had a total of 2 cars behind us for the whole ride, 4 or 5 hours that day. It was amazing. Couldn't ask for better weather. Man, we dodged the weather every day, too. That was bizarre. It only rained on us at night. During the day, it was great. We only had 1 shower during the day up high in the mountains, and that lasted like 5 minutes and then blew out. And then all the roads were covered in steam and fog from the hot roads and the rain that had just hit. It was pretty neat, and I got that on video. It's all steamy up here. It's so cool. So yeah, it was a good trip. I plan on doing it again. There's a gathering up in Arkansas in September called Scooting the Ozarks. I'll put some information on that down in the video description below if anybody's interested in doing that. I didn't know about it until one of these members of the Scooter Cannonball Run mentioned it. So I'll be attending that. I don't know if I'll take the PCX or the Cub, or hell, I might even dust off the Silverwing for that. I don't know. It'd be fun to do it on the Cub, although it's, technically not a scooter. But that will be one seriously butt-numbing ride on the Cub. I'll have to do something for highway pegs to be able to stretch out my legs. The seat on this thing isn't bad, but it's very narrow and it's kind of hard. So when you've been sitting on it for more than, let me rephrase, when I've been sitting on it more than about 3 hours or so, it starts to bug me a little bit. And of course the fuel range on this thing is only 110 miles before you need to start sweating the fuel station. So it's time to get off and stretch your legs anyway after an hour and a half, 2 hours. I guess that works out okay. We'll go ahead and get up on the highway. Running late for my breakfast meet as usual. Supposed to be there at 8:30, and it's about that time. Just do on and off. So how about that? This section of highway out here and this far out west, everybody hauls ass, in 85 plus. So I don't like riding this particular stretch of road on the Cub until I get a little more in when the speed limit drops down to 60, and then people are doing 75. So this is a pretty comfortable speed for the Cub. I'm pointing my camera down and looking up through the top of my helmet, so you guys don't think I'm just being an idiot here. Well, I'm an idiot anyway, but 55 indicated on this is a pretty comfortable cruising speed, and considering with this 15-tooth front sprocket, I can get 70, 72 absolute top end out of it. I think this is probably a good range for highway cruising and whatnot on this without being up too close to red line or really stressing out the bike too much. And I've got a little bit of throttle left. I'm only running it at about maybe 70% throttle, 80%, somewhere in that range. So you can't see it because of the mount, but there's open. So it's doing okay. I just stay over to the right lane and let all the fast people go by. When you get in behind another vehicle as a windbreak, you can almost close the throttle on this thing. It's just fighting the wind that uses up all the horsepower. Or squirrel power, or whatever you want to call it. How many horses here? 8.5 or whatever it is. 8.5 horsepower. That's like 64 squirrel power. I hope this video is coming out okay, because I had a incident with one of those big red hornets, wasps, whatever they are, trying to nest up in my helmet when I was camping. So I was trying to knock him out of there, and I ended up knocking my helmet right off of the mirror on the scooter, and helmet hit the ground. Didn't really hurt the helmet much, but it popped my GoPro right off the mount, and I noticed later that I broke my little glass lens cover on the GoPro. So I don't know if that's showing up in the video frame or not. Hope not. So the other thing, ride report on the Arkansas trip, The only mechanical issues that we had on the PCXs, on the NCY variator that's in the gray 2016, I noticed that the clutch or the rear drive was making a warbling kind of scraping sound. So I don't know if that was just like a stuck clutch shoe or what's going on. It seemed to get louder and then went away, came back, went away. So I don't know. It didn't seem to have any functional issues. It just was noisy. Then on the white 2015 PCX, something has gone wonky in there. Not a failure, but just not quite right. Either the clutch is stuck engaging too early, or the variator is stuck in kind of a medium ratio. It's not opening all the way up, because when you try to take off, immediately the motor goes, you know, it almost bogs out. Not really dies, but it really bogs out, and you can't accelerate with a flip. You can't accelerate until you're up above like 10 or 15 miles an hour. So I need to tear that apart today and dig into it and figure out what's what. I'll try to video that. What I'm wondering is if one of the sliders in there has turned. I know that they were correct when I put them in, and it was great for the first half of the trip. But about halfway through, I noticed that the belt was shuddering a little bit, even at idle. So that means it was trying to stay engaged, or it was too high up on the pulley. So, you know, I'll dig in there. If it's the clutch, yeah, I've got the one off the 2016 that I can throw on there. If it's the variator, then we can always go back to the factory variator and put the sliders in that. But both of the variators did help with top speed. All right. Both the variators did help with top speed. They bumped the bikes up to where they never touched the rev limiter. It would pull hard all the way up to, you know, drag limited speed. So the gray PCX was getting 74, and the white one was getting 72. So it's pretty good. Do they have a spot? Do they have a spot for me? Nope. Nope. Well, I'm gonna park right here. Nah, I won't be a dick. I'll just go up over the curb. I don't normally take curbs on this thing because it doesn't have a lot of ground clearance, but hey. Put my bike right here. This business is out of business, so there's no business. My spot. That's the great thing about riding a motorcycle, especially a scooter. Park where you want. Usually they're innocent enough that nobody cares. Okay, well, I've arrived for breakfast at Smoothie Island Grill, and I'm gonna eat. I'm hungry. And then it's off to a very short work engagement, and the rest of the day is gonna be cleaning up the gear from the trip. So, ciao.